We've all heard of the Bermuda Triangle, famous for disappearing ships and planes. But did you know that there are other such geographic locations where higher than usual frequencies of paranormal activity occur? And why should this be? Sacred triangles can be observed in many places of worship. Geometrically stacked triangles form yantras in Hinduism. Across countless theologies and belief systems, there are trinities, or three tenets which must balance to achieve righteousness and enlightenment. Some of the better-known symbolic examples include the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, spirit, mind, and body, power, courage, and wisdom. Is it possible there's something beyond the metaphoric or symbolic meaning of triangles, in which certain geographic triangular coordinates could potentially possess a power, making those areas more prone to paranormal activity? Join us in a series in which we explore such triangles. Today's episode is part 1 of 2 of the Wandering Crow's investigation of the Bennington Triangle.
There is a medicine story that tells of Crow's fascination with her own shadow. She kept looking at it, pecking at it until her shadow woke up and became alive. Then Crow's shadow ate her. Crow is dead Crow now. Join us as we attempt to look through the Wandering Crow's eye to find the gateway to the supernatural, to seek to know the unknowable mysteries of creation. Welcome to the Wandering Crow podcast.
Welcome, murderers. This is Mandy.
This is JT.
This is Abbey.
And this is Cameron.
As you can tell from that lovely intro, we are talking about another triangle today. This is the Bennington Triangle. I would like to preface this by saying I thought it was in the heart of Appalachia, and it is technically in the Appalachian Mountains, but I thought it was down south somewhere. I think the place where I heard about it for the first time was Appalachia's own Bermuda Triangle. And I was like, oh, sweet, very cool. And then it's like in Vermont. It's actually super close to the Bridgewater Triangle.
You idiot.
Yes. That's how I feel.
I didn't know where it was.
I looked up a bunch of Appalachian lore and I was deep into understanding the subculture and some of their myths and stuff. I was so excited. And then I finally looked up like exactly where the triangle was. And I was like, oh, this has been a waste of my time. Okay. Although that was fun, so I guess it wasn't really a waste. The Appalachian subculture is pretty cool.
I looked up the Appalachians, and it's in there, part of the long stretch. Glastonbury Mountain.
I mean, it is.
Just not considered the
it's
main
not
part.
Of, yeah, like the specific subculture that when people think of the Appalachian, like, okay, I'm going to say it, hillbillies, there's 13 states where that culture is considered to kind of span across. That's kind of considered a cohesive subculture. Before we get too into it, social media.
Indeed. Hey, murderers, if you like the cut of our jib, please subscribe to our channel and leave a 5-star review through whichever platform you stream our episodes. If you'd like to help us grow, then please download, like, share, and comment on our episodes. If you have any feedback or paranormal stories you'd like to hear featured on an episode, you can contact us a number of ways. We have an email, a Facebook, an Instagram, a website, and even a phone number. Links to all of those are always shared in the episode description. Now, without further delay, back to the episode.
So, the Appalachian Mountains, and when I grew up saying Appalachian. And then all of a sudden there was this big push to call it Appalachia. I actually really felt like, well, that's dumb. Why would I do that? Why would I say that? And then we started having to correct people from saying Mongolian instead of Mogollon. I guess if I'm going to be a big hard ass about how to pronounce my own mountain range, I can see that perspective. I guess I can get behind that.
Well, it's a rim, the Mogollon Rim. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to say it right. It's
Yeah.
similar region.
It's not Mongolian. It's not even spelled like Mongolian, which is like kills me. But I can understand why it would be hard to figure out how to pronounce it because it doesn't sound like how it's spelled. But that's not what we're talking about.
Vermont.
Vermont.
The Bennington Triangle, centered around Glastonbury Mountain in Vermont, has been long known for its strange events, including UFO activity, Bigfoot sightings, strange lights and sounds, and the location where 5 people disappeared in the 1940s and 50s. The area is also said to be cursed, according to Native American lore.
This is important. Vermont is the second least populated state in all of the United States. And it is the second highest in UFO sightings across the country per capita.
Oh, didn't know that.
The reason this came up is because we have this series of disappearances, which is why people became focused on this area and pretty much why the Bennington Triangle kind of got its name. And it happens in a less than 10-year period and then boom, nothing. Well, why? Why nothing? Where are the other disappearances? And it's because there's no people out there. Those towns where the majority of these disappearances happened are ghost towns now. There just aren't people out there. So if there was something supernatural going on out there, there's not a lot of opportunity for people to show up missing in these areas anymore because there's just not people there. There are living towns still there, sort of. The triangle is defined by the city of Bennington, Woodford, and Shaftesbury. But the majority of these disappearances happened kind of in the hub of this town that was called Glastonbury, another town called Somerset, which were both logging hubs. And then they did a lot of logging. They predictably overlogged. And then there was crazy flooding, go figure, because there was nothing to hold back the tides of water. And those towns essentially drowned out. One town was evacuated and there was some 10 people left. And in fact, one of them has a population of 6. Which one was that? Oh, there it is. Somerset is almost a ghost town with, as of the most recent U.S. Census, there are 6 residents still residing in that little town right now. So it's just empty and nature has kind of reclaimed it.
Somerset had its own specific disappearance. That was Frida Langer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but she's one of the 5, popular 5.
There's 6.
There's 6. Well, 7 depending on who you ask.
Who's the 7th?
Well, there's the one guy, the hunter, who went out hunting for deer. Some people consider him the 6th, and nobody really talks about the 6th girl.
What about Carol Herrick in 1943?
Carl. Is it Carol?
Carol. I show Carol.
What's that story? Is that not the hunter who's found shot and popped up against a tree with his gun next to him?
Yes, that's the one.
No, that's Carl. Carl Herrick.
Yeah, Carl.
The website I have shows Carol. So Carol, I don't know.
They're dumb.
Whatever.
You guys, I listened to 17 podcasts and not a single one was the same exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then every website you look up, the details are different. Most say 5, but some of them say 6 and they count Carl. And then a sparse few who are even aware of that real 6th girl that nobody talks about.
Who? What was her name?
Martha Jeanette Jones. She disappeared the same year, a month after Frida Langer. But the problem is her disappearance wasn't reported until a month later because she was a seminary school. And she came to visit her mom. She went hitchhiking back to school over on the other side of the mountain. And a month went by before anybody realized, oh, she's not with you. Oh, she's not with you. It was the same thing with that old man who disappeared off the bus. They all thought he was with the other and nobody reported him for a week. This girl wasn't reported for a month. So it was the little boy and Frida and this girl all disappeared the same year within a month and a half of each other.
That's crazy.
But nobody talks about her.
No, why does nobody talk about her?
Was Mitty Rivers, was that one of them?
He's technically the first, if you don't count the hunter who was found shot.
In chronological order, the very first one to disappear was actually Alfred J. Bishop. He went missing on November 3rd, 1926.
Oh, bum. Still
Okay, I haven't heard about this
same
guy.
time of year. Tell us more.
So he was in Bennington, Vermont. I don't know if he was quite exactly in the Bennington Triangle, but he's pretty close. So Alfred and his friend, Morris Gallagher, left their residence in Felchville and traveled a short distance to their hunting area in a region near Reading. The men arrived early and decided to split up to meet back at their cars and at an agreed time. Alfred never came back. Once Morris realized that Alfred wasn't going to show up, he searched the area of their cars as much as he could and then drove to Springfield to get more assistance. 24 hours after Alfred disappears, researchers found his body under very, very strange circumstances. The Lewiston Daily ran the following description of the scene. Bishop's body was found beside an abandoned road in the woods near the summer camp of Attorney General John G. Sargent. There were evidences of a terrific struggle in the snow, which was beaten down for a distance of 60 paces about the body. Strewn about in different directions were Bishop's rifle, coat, and gloves. Everybody talked about how it was weird that there was a complete lack of bloodstains in the snow, and a preliminary examination showed no wounds on his body. It was sent for autopsy because they couldn't figure out what had happened to him or how he had died. And in November 6th, the Bridgeport Telegram came out with this autopsy result. An autopsy was performed today on the body of Alfred Bishop of Felchville and failed to dispel the mystery of the young man's death during the hunting trip on Wednesday. There are no external marks of violence disclosed on the autopsy. They talk about how the snow had been trampled over a considerable area and there was every evidence of a terrific struggle. 35 miles southeast of Reading is West Townsend, a location where an equally baffling death occurred with the same parallel elements, and that's the case of Carl Herrick. So this dude is on a hunting trip with his friend. They split up. He doesn't ever show back up. He's found dead, and nobody can figure out why. And it looks like there was a big fight, but there's no signs of cause of death that they're able to determine on the autopsy. At least that was reported by the reporters. That's strange. So he got into this big crazy fight, but he just died and nobody really knows how or what happened to him. So that's a really weird one.
So wait, where is the triangle? Because that's way north Vermont.
That is in Vermont.
It is Vermont, but it's far north.
It's far north.
If we're going to share those stories, then I can tell you that more happened then in the 1970s, and we should share those later.
Okay. I would like to hear those.
Okay.
So these are all, just so that we're clear, these all came out of the Missing 411 by Dave Paulidis.
Damn.
He collects these kinds of cases. I think most people who listen to our show probably heard the first Missing 411 show that we did, which was amazing. And when I realized, hey, these are some strange circumstances surrounding these disappearances, I wonder if these are in the 411. And I looked for them. Oh, yes. I'm so excited. They are part of the 411.
That makes sense.
So he considers, even though it's not technically in the Bennington Triangle, he considers that Alfred Bishop to be part of the 411 because the circumstances are very unusual. And it is in the mountains of Vermont. I'm just going to say it right off the bat. I think that the designation of this triangle is arbitrary. I think the entire state of Vermont has a lot of really crazy shit in it that happens. And I've got a lot of stories and a lot of indigenous stories that back up that Vermont is a crazy place. It is crazy.
The phrase Bennington Triangle was coined by New England author Joseph A. Citro in 1992. And that was on an interview. It was an interview who said that the area shared characteristics with the Bridgewater Triangle in neighboring Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. I thought there was a guy who wrote a book.
He did.
Not this guy?
He did.
Citro ended up writing a book about this.
Okay, so it makes sense that the Bridgewater Triangle was part of his inspiration, but I have been hearing that it shares attributes with the Bermuda Triangle because of how people disappear and get discombobulated, and either way, the whole triangle thing still fits, and so that's why he gave it that name. Okay, thanks, JT. Sorry, Mandy. Where were you? Oh, missing people. We're talking about the missing people, and you started with Alfred.
The next chronological disappearance is Alice Baker. She disappeared in 1920. And this is in the Bald Mountain
But I
area.
thought the other guy was 1926.
Oh, I'm a liar. She was 20 months old. Sorry, I looked at the wrong thing. She disappeared in 1937.
Oh my God.
She's a baby. She's a literal baby. So this is the Bald Mountain region of Bennington, Vermont. This is literally in Bennington.
Bennington. Okay? Oh my God.
This baby is 20 months old. She's not even 2 years. Mr. and Mrs. Kimball Baker are from Hudson Falls, New York, and they chose to spend a summer vacation at Bald Mountain, about 5 miles north of Bennington. They had 3 children. Alice was the youngest. The vacation cabin was located on an isolated side road approximately 1 mile from Highway 7, which links Bennington and Rutland, which is another city there. In the afternoon of August 16th, Mrs. Baker needed to go to a neighbor's house and left Alice alone at the cabin. She returned 10 minutes later to find Alice missing. She quickly searched the area around the cabin, yelled her name several times, and did not get a response. Mrs. Baker went back to the neighbor's house and requested additional assistance and asked that law enforcement be notified. After 2 intensive days of searching, what month is this? This is August 16th. So not too bad, but it would still get cold at night.
Yeah. That whole area is alleged to get snow most of the year because of its elevation.
Mm-hmm. So the Telegraph on August 18th ran a story that ran a series of quotes. The first is from the local constable who says, "Maybe Alice didn't wander away alone into the woods. I'm afraid something else happened to her," which indicates there was some kind of evidence to suggest that maybe she was kidnapped. Or at least the constable felt she had been kidnapped.
I mean, she's 20 months old. I don't know how she's going to...
She's pretty short. Can she open a door?
Yeah, I'm sure she could probably walk, but not far. Yeah. So the county sheriff, Clyde Peck, stated in the same article that he felt Alice Baker had been kidnapped. Okay. Weather in the area during the search had actually turned quite cold at night with occasional showers. On the 19th, the Meriden Daily said, they quoted Sheriff Peck as saying, "The child could not possibly have survived the cold and exposure of the past 2 nights." At this point, they're looking for a body. They were still continuing the search. They were tramping around the woods around the Baker summer home, but they really didn't feel like they were going to be able to find her. 3 different bloodhounds failed to find a scent. And this is one of the things that David Paulides is very keyed in on. A lot of his missing 401 cases, the hounds cannot find a scent, which is very mysterious. So they were getting ready to shut down the search on the 20th when something drastic happened. Volunteers searching a seldom used logging road thought they heard moaning. The searchers broke through the thick undergrowth and found Alice sitting under a spruce tree. The girl was naked, sitting on her one-piece blue sunsuit. Doctors later examined the girl and stated that she would be up and playing in just a few days. There was no statement about dehydration or her appetite. So David Paulides, he doesn't often write notes about cases, but he did write some notes about this one. He says, "Wow! I wish I had been a criminal investigator in the Bennington in the late 30s and 40s. Again, high strangeness strikes the Bennington area. The disappearance of Alice has left many unanswered questions, and I'm surprised the sheriff didn't make any additional statements after she was found." He says it's obvious from the articles and quotations that law enforcement felt something abnormal occurred to her. It's also obvious from the quotations that nobody thought she would be found alive. Remember, the rationale behind people's belief the girl would not be found alive: cold weather and her age. She was found naked. Does this sound like a person who was supposed to die from exposure? Sheriff Peck made a statement that he felt Alice had been kidnapped. He made that statement because she was nowhere near the cabin and she was only 20 months old. The sheriff knew the girl could not have gone far because of her size and age. She also didn't have the ability to withstand the wilds alone. How did Alice survive if she didn't have assistance? The last item of interest in this case is the lack of success by the bloodhounds. In almost every case in which small children disappear and are found at a distance from their original location, where law enforcement officers don't feel they could have gotten on their own, canines cannot seem to find a scent or won't track. This is an issue that SAR officials wouldn't understand unless they have researched hundreds of cases with similar canine behavior. So, I mean, there's an obvious explanation. A human person picked her up and walked off with her. And when they were done with her, they just dropped her off on this logging road.
But there's no notes on any assault or any
No.
injury.
No. And I don't know if, in the case of a 20-month-old where it's highly sensitive, would they have released information if she had been assaulted? I don't know. So there's that obvious thing.
You would think that there'd still be a continuing investigation, and that doesn't seem
exactly.
to be the case either.
In looking for the kidnapper. That's an interesting point, Cameron. There doesn't seem, once they found her, it seemed like it was pretty much over.
They were like, cool.
Sweet. She's here. Yep. That is a really strange case. The bloodhound thing gets me because even if a human adult took her, there would be something to track the person who maybe took her. There would be some evidence. And I think that she still leaves a smell, doesn't she? She still leaves a scent trail, even if she's not the one walking. I don't know.
Unless she walked through a portal or got abducted by aliens.
Unless she was levitated out of there.
Or Bigfoot kidnapped her because they wanted to play with a baby. I don't know. So that's the next one. And that one, I was so relieved that they found her alive. I was so happy. The next one happened in November 26th, 1943. So right around Thanksgiving.
Okay. 43.
This one is called Carl Herrick. We were talking about this one. Okay.
Not Carol.
He's 37
Carl.
years old. Carl, not Carol. This is 10 miles northeast of Bennington. It's a rural area with thick woods. It's on the east side of Glastonbury Mountain. And this is also the place where Paula Weldon disappeared, who is a future one that we'll talk about.
Quick question. Glastonbury Town and Bennington, are they two different places or are they...
I thought they were two different places. And Glastonbury is a mountain and a town, I thought.
Because the details of the story that I read said he was 10 miles northeast of Glastonbury Town. And you're saying he was 10 miles northeast of Bennington?
He was in these Glastonbury Mountains. It's this mountain range off of the long trail / the highways around there.
One of the problems might be the fact that there is a mountain and a town.
Yeah.
According to David Paulidis, West Townsend is a town that's 10 miles northeast of Bennington, but it's just east or on the east side of Glastonbury Mountain. So maybe people are using the term Glastonbury Mountain and Glastonbury Town interchangeably?
Maybe.
I don't know. All I know is that they're saying that Carl Herrick and Paula Weston and Paul Jepson all disappeared from the same place. And also Frida Langer, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the stories get repeated. And so they're kind of just generalizing this whole mountain range area.
Yes.
This whole place from Florida to Canada.
Well, it's a little bit more tighter than that, but yes.
Mostly just the south end of this national park. It seems to be the trend.
Yeah. So the situation is Carl is out with his cousin Henry, and they're deer hunting. During the hunt, they get separated, and Carl never showed up at camp like he was supposed to. Henry calls law enforcement pretty much immediately, and when they went to go start searching for him, immediately snow started to fall that very first night, which is a common trend in the missing 401, is that snow or some other weather event keeps them from being able to search. So the search for Carl continued for 3 days without finding any trace of him. Late on that third day, Carl's cousin Henry found Carl on the mountain lying on the ground motionless. He walked to his body and found that his face was black with some minor scratches on the arms and the hands. There were allegedly some, quotations, huge bear tracks on the ground in the area. Carl's rifle was found leaning against a tree 70 feet away. There was one expended round lying on the ground near the rifle. So the theory was at the time, and this was posted in one of the newspapers, the coroner, Carlos Ortiz, said the bear had scratched Herrick about the head, but killed him by squeezing him. The victim's lung was punctured. Can we talk about that just for a minute? A bear hit him about the head and just lightly scratched him and then squeezed him so hard that his rib cage fractured and punctured his lung. Does that sound like bear attacks? Does that is that
what
usually
was that?
typically how bears kill people?
No.
Okay. The visual, what was that Leonardo DiCaprio movie where he's out in the woods? He gets attacked by a bear and the bear is standing on top of him, mauling him and bouncing on him, I want to say. I think that's something a bear will do.
Revenant. The Revenant, yeah.
Sure.
That's the name of
That's
the
the only
movie.
one where he won the award, too.
Yeah.
Wasn't there another one with John Candy, an older movie where there was a
Oh,
bear
yeah.
and they shoot it?
What was that?
Not Caddyshack.
No. Yeah.
The Great Outdoors.
You know what I mean. The Great
Outdoors.
And then the bear has this big bald spot across his forehead and then eventually his butt. And the bear is just bouncing on him on the door. I don't think bears do that. In real life.
I don't know. I don't know bear behavior.
If you're mauled by a bear, it's scratching you, biting you. It's
beating the shit out of you.
Yeah, it's not squeezing
again, going
you.
to eat you.
Well, then what is our suggestion, everybody? Did a Bigfoot find him and hug him to death?
Potentially.
Yeah.
It was like, I will hug you and squeeze you and kiss you
Call
and
you
call
George.
you George. And he was like, whoops.
Oops,
Sure.
I killed you. I'm going to
Like
let
a
you
cat.
take a nap.
The bears, apparently, they'll try to keep you alive so that the meat's still fresh and come back later.
Yeah,
That is
you've
something new
said that
I've heard
before. Really?
Mm-hmm.
I heard you talk about that the last missing 401 case, I feel like.
It's pretty brutal. I didn't know that until like
That's scary.
a couple of years ago. Yeah.
So that your meat is fresh, huh?
And how do bears manage that?
Because they go for the limbs first.
Yeah.
What do you think, JT?
I don't think a bear would squeeze him to death, but I mean,
No,
no.
well,
And he didn't have anything missing of him.
If a bear stood on a person, I don't think it would fracture just one rib. But I'm sorry, JT, I cut you off.
Was it one rib or was it multiple ribs?
yeah, I mean,
It
his
doesn't
That it were
actually.
are they that specific? His lungs were
I mean,
perforated.
if the book would know the most detailed information, I would think, because of the guy's research.
It only says had a broken rib that punctured his lung. It doesn't talk about any other ribs.
I would think that if a bear was bouncing on his chest, it would break more than one rib.
It absolutely would.
Ribs yeah.
And there would be contusions and there would be marks. So here's what David Paulides says. He says, after conducting 1,000 hours of research and reading countless documents about a person's cause of death, I have never read about a bear that squeezed an adult to death. Many of the articles surmise that Carl shot a bear, placed his rifle against a tree, and walked up to the body to find out that, unfortunately, it was still alive. And that's okay, I can see that scenario. A hunter shoots somebody, says, cool, I got it, and then goes to investigate. But then Paulides says this, because I don't do hunting, so I don't know what the normal procedure is. All hunters are trained to keep their weapons with them, walk to the body, and touch the eye with the barrel to ensure the animal doesn't flinch. I didn't know that. He goes, it's hard for me to believe that Carl placed his rifle against the tree and walked 70 feet to a downed bear.
After one shot.
After one shot. That's all that was expended, just one bullet. So, and all the other thing is they were hunting deer, not bear. So they're saying if he was charged by a bear, the likelihood of him shooting a huge bear only once and immediately dropping the animal would be pretty minimal.
Yeah.
A hunter would fire multiple times to make sure that a wounded bear wasn't running around in the wild.
It would also depend on the bear because certain bears attack in different ways. If it's a grizzly, grizzly's going to come up behind you and push you down. But a black bear doesn't necessarily attack that same way.
Okay. So he goes, the other thing is it's also extremely hard to believe that a bear would grab a person and try to squeeze him to death, especially black bears in the United States, which are not that big. If a bear grabbed a person,
and that's what they have there, which is why he brought that up, right?
Yeah. He goes, if a bear grabbed a person, which is reasonable, it would bite and claw him. There wasn't one mention on any report of severe cut, bite, or other kind of wounds to Carl, only minor scratches and no bite marks. So basically he Carl left behind 5 small children. Super sad. So David Paulides considers this one a missing 401 just because the circumstances are crazy. I don't know what it is about this one, but it reminds me of the dude who was found they were not able to find his cause of death. The first one that they talked about in the 20s. He struggled and was rolling around in the snow, 60 feet of struggle. Did he get squeezed to death? Did they just not know to look for that? Did they not understand the signs of I don't know, suffocation, I guess would be the better word, not strangulation. I don't know.
I think it's
All right,
obvious.
who's next?
I think it's obvious.
Next. What's obvious?
He was killed by Bigfoot. So was the first guy.
All right. Mitty Rivers went missing in 1945, also in November.
Okay, so it goes straight to Mitty Rivers. Who's the guy that I'm thinking of who got shot?
What guy got shot?
Mixing
The guy that
stories?
yelled out, I got shot. And then he disappeared for a day, and they found out that
Did he yell that out?
Yeah, he yelled it out, and he disappeared.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Do you have a date?
So there was a
What
guy.
was this one?
He disappeared, and then
It must not have been.
a couple of days later, they found him in a different place with a gunshot wound.
Crazy.
Yeah, and he'd been dragged about like 7 feet and sat up against the tree, and his gun was like right next to him, propped up.
I forget who was that.
I think somebody maybe accidentally shot him, felt bad, and moved him, and they just like tiptoed out of there.
They confirmed it wasn't from his gun. That was all they know about it, really.
I mean, David Paulides, for whatever reason, does not consider that a missing 411.
Right.
Because that's not in here.
Okay, so
so that is crazy,
Bennington
though.
Triangle lore, that's one of the stories that comes up a lot too.
Interesting.
Do we have a year for that?
Yeah, do you know?
A date?
No.
Okay.
I'll look it up.
Because that would be somewhere between 1943 and 1945.
Yeah, that's a pretty short window.
Yeah.
I am curious to know about the details of that case. How far away was he from where he first yelled out, "I got shot"? Are we talking about miles? What are we talking about here? Because that fits into my portal theory. I think that these are portals crushing people.
John Harbour, prominent Woodford citizen, found shot dead near a cedar tree in Bickford Hollow, which is within the Bennington Triangle. It appeared he had been dragged several yards from the shooting location and left to bleed out with his rifle nearby. Police never located any suspects, and the murder of Harbour remains unsolved. So his was considered, obviously, a murder because he was found shot, but it's still odd. And it's another one of those situations where I think he was out there with a partner or a friend, and then whatever reason they got separated, and then
2 friends were with him. And he got separated, and they just hear, "I've been shot," but they didn't hear a gunshot, they said. And he disappeared.
That's weird. That's really weird. Bennington Triangle, weird place. Okay. So, and he was pretty close to the area where they last saw him, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did a search party, and they didn't find him.
Yeah.
Like
that was the other trend of all of these.
Was that they found them later where they had already searched?
Yeah, and they're all within 6 miles of where they disappeared in the first place, even though they're combing 230 miles. Okay, on that John Harbour thing real quick. Actually, this was in the
1897.
Oh, there you go. 1897.
Oh, dang.
This one, I think they're trying to tie. There was a guy who was probably schizophrenic. He was hearing voices in his head, and he bludgeoned a coworker to death at one of the mills.
I heard that story.
Yeah, he eventually turned himself in and then was committed to go live in an institution.
An asylum, yeah.
He escaped. Then it was 5 years after he escaped, this John Harbour guy, and this incident happened. So there's speculation that maybe that guy was still somehow living in the woods. And
I mean, 5 years is pretty good. I had heard a different podcast that said that there are other people who are tying all of these missing people 50 years later to that same guy, which is a lot harder to believe.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Mitty Rivers. It happened in 1945. This is a 75-year-old man. He had lived almost his entire life in Bennington. He knew this area. He was an avid outdoorsman. He devoted every free second of his time to hunting and fishing out there. This was his home. He knew this land, and he knew how to get to and fro. So he was really lucky that he was able to blend his hobby also into his job. He actually became a game guide. So on November 12th, 1945, he had taken 4 hunters out onto Glastonbury Mountain, and they had spent a day on the mountain and were getting ready to come back down. Mitty had made this trip hundreds of times. He knew this mountain like you know your backyard. This is according to David Paulides. As the group was returning, Mitty got slightly ahead and somehow never arrived at their vehicles. A search was conducted, and the path that the group took was retraced. The only item that searchers found was one bullet next to a creek along the path that Mitty was traveling. Newspapers printed the following answer about the discovery of the bullet. Mitty leaned down to get a drink, and it fell out of his pocket. Searchers never found him, never found his supplies, never found his rifle, his coat, his hat, nothing. David Paulides says Mitty was the one individual in the Bennington area who would never get lost. The idea that searchers couldn't locate his body means that he was taken from the area. There's no other explanation. Finding the bullet next to the creek could have one other explanation other than just that it fell out of his pocket when he leaned out to get some water. Mitty may have been walking near the creek, saw what appeared to be a threat, removed the bullet from his coat, and as he was trying to load his firearm, was overpowered.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a scenario that David Paulides posits.
So I also read real quick that he was leading the hunting party into an area called Hell Hollow.
What? I thought he was taking them back to the camp.
Yeah, they were on their way back. They had been there and then were on the way back.
Oh.
I don't know. It's just different things.
People embellish.
I saw a report, and again, I can't tell if this is embellished or if I read it in one of the newspaper clips because I'm so disorganized. He was wearing, allegedly, a black and red plaid jacket when he disappeared. Which
David Paulides doesn't mention that.
Well, I'm just going to say it, and then we'll come back to it later.
Because he does mention that in a different person.
Yes, I know. That's
That was
why
an
I want to
important
bring
detail.
it up right now.
The next one, 1946, in December 1st, so this is almost exactly a year later. This is, again, the Glastonbury Mountain in Bennington, Vermont. She was 18 years old. She was 5'5", 122 pounds. She was a little itty bitty. Her name is Paula Jean Weldon. She was a sophomore in college. It was Sunday, and she had worked breakfast and lunch shifts at the dining hall. She went back to her dorm room and told her roommate that she wanted to go on a hike in the Glastonbury Mountain. She put on some jeans, sneakers, and took her red parka. A motorist who was passing picked her up and dropped her off at the long trail at the base of the mountain. Now, I would have said,
He did it.
she's hitchhiking. A hitchhiker did it, right?
Yeah.
Except, somewhere along the way,
Numerous
people saw
people.
her on the trail and can confirm that
Multiples.
she definitely made it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, shit, I guess it wasn't the hitchhiking guy. So, somewhere on this trail, Paula met fate and was never seen again. Her roommate reported her missing about a day after she went to the mountain, hoping that she would return, and she never did. Her father was an industrial engineer, and her mother took care of the household duties.
The father was a big deal.
Yeah, once they found out that she had disappeared, they descended on campus and stayed there for like 2 weeks while the search was going on, pushing for answers and trying to get things to happen.
The whole campus shut down, and everybody on campus volunteered to go search the mountains. He had the FBI called in. They had National Guard called in. He was at the sheriff's department for how shitty they were handling the situation, and he had them form the state patrol after this.
Yeah, she's the
Her
reason
father
they
was
have
a mover and a shaker, and he was not going to have his daughter disappear on his hands.
There was
Yeah,
a,
If he could
Vermont
help it.
didn't have state police before her.
there was a $5,000 reward.
Yeah. So the very first night she disappeared, it had actually snowed. Searchers scoured the mountain until the weather started to deteriorate. After 2 weeks, the SAR operations were terminated.
You're right. That is a common trend. So, again, it was that time of year, and then it was late afternoon, early evening that she went missing. Same thing with Mitty Rivers. It was 4:00 when he hadn't returned back to the campsite that they were like, we should probably call the sheriffs and figure out what's going on because he shouldn't be missing. So same time of day, same time of year, red parka. There was a lot of speculation about how maybe she ran away or something.
Why would she?
Why would she? She was
A happy girl. She was doing well. There was no indication of that.
All indications pointed, based on the way she was dressed and that she brought no gear or anything with her, that she intended to go back that evening. Allegedly, she even asked a bunch of other kids to go with her on the hike.
And nobody could.
Right.
So among spots investigated by searchers were Bickford Hollow area, where a strong odor, at first believed to be that of an animal or human body, was detected on Saturday. And the swamp section of Manchester is where screams of a young girl were reported on the night that she disappeared.
What?
Did you not hear that? Yeah.
No.
Nope.
And this is important. The screaming. Remember this. She was at the swamp and they were screaming at this swamp. This actually can tie back in to some older stories. Law enforcement did have reports of a woman screaming in the swampy area, and they were now searching it again. 2 days of search efforts did not produce any other positive results. Hundreds of people participated in her search. The search was touted as one of the largest ever conducted in the area. So, I don't know. There's a lot of speculation. I don't think it's necessarily important to get into David Paulides' speculation about this, but I guess people basically felt like she was carried away and killed, but she was on a pretty steep hiking path. And his question about that was, okay, she's a small girl, granted, 5'5", 122 pounds. But even for like the strongest man going up a really steep incline in that kind of weather, how easily could you really pick up 122 pounds and haul that weight up or down a mountain without being caught or leaving any traces? Hiking is not easy by any means. And especially if she was at some point, like maybe alive and struggling, and even if she was dead weight, that's a lot to carry without leaving behind some kind of trace. So he didn't think, he goes, well, how? Who could do that? And why? Like, how did they get away with that?
Was she on a difficult part of the long trail? Or because there was a report of an older couple that was out for a stroll on that same trail and saw her approximately 100 yards ahead of them on the path, and they watched her turn a corner, but when they caught up to that same spot, she was nowhere in sight. And it would have been really hard to miss that red jacket against all the green foliage of the area.
Apparently she was on her way up to the top of the mountain. The last sighting of her was at 4 p.m. And he was hiking down, she was hiking up, and she asked him, like, hey, how long until I get to the top of the mountain? And he told her, and he said, I was actually kind of concerned because dusk happens at 5. So she didn't really have a lot of time to get up and then back down again.
I thought, okay, so it was another hiker.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was somebody who, oh man, I guess, again, we're going to trust Paulides' account because he's such a thorough investigator versus all of the hearsay that the internet is about all of this. There's so many different variations of the stories. I heard about the guy who lived in a cabin off of the trail. She stopped and asked him how far the trail goes, and he told her it could potentially take her all the way to Canada. So that's just a different variation, but
right. Well, the long trail is
hiker.
a 270-mile trail.
Yeah. I ended up looking it up afterward. It takes people 5 to 7 months to get through it, by the way.
The whole that trail is crazy. So one portion of this investigation has me very concerned. So again, this is David Paulides talking. Many people who have disappeared and were subsequently found were found in swampy areas. Law enforcement did state that a witness heard a female scream in the swampy area of Bickford Hollow the night she disappeared. Bickford Hollow is a location off of Long Trail Road and is probably 1,000 feet from the end and to the north. The hollow is at the end of a long ridgeline that has its start near Glastonbury Mountain. The elevation at the hollow is 1,500 feet. If we follow the evidence in many missing person cases listed in this book, there's a reasonably good likelihood that Paula Weldon is in that swamp. And then he talks about her red coat. You would think that wearing a brightly colored coat would make it easier to find her. And he says it may be that bright colors attract predators, but it also seems that many people who have disappeared have been wearing red. So he does nod to that people were wearing red, but then he doesn't specifically call it out in any of these cases.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, you got to keep going.
All right, next.
The next one and the next one. All red.
Paul Jepson, 1950. Oh, he was 8, and this one sucks. And I heard some speculation about this one that I don't like, but I guess is possible. So he's 8 years old. They were at the city dump in Bennington, Vermont when this happened. So Nancy and Paul Jepson Sr. were school teachers and decided that they wanted to live a rural life. So they got a job and moved down to that area. One of the things that they did was they kept pigs. And so they actually were allowed, I guess, to keep their pigs on the dump, and they would just like eat, and then they would rotate where the pigs were every day.
They managed the dump too. And that was part of the arrangement, was everything you're saying, plus they also kind of maintained that property.
Are we thinking Hannibal Lecter?
That has been suggested.
That's one of the speculations. They had 2 kids, by the way. So
yeah, the other one was in school.
They're named, the lady and the man, Nancy and Paul. Guess what the kids' names are? Nancy and Paul. So Nancy is 7, Paul is 8. And it was after school. I don't remember exactly what happened, but Paul was with her in the truck, and she needed to go do this pig thing. And she's like, it's only going to take a few minutes. She just basically has to kind of shepherd the pigs to a new spot and move the fence. It took her 30 minutes.
The weather was crappy or something. And he didn't want to be outside, and he had special needs. He had some sort of neurodivergence.
Okay.
And he was homeschooled. He was with her all day.
Oh. So she took the family truck, and it was 3:30 p.m. She parked the truck near the forest and took 30 minutes to move the pigs. By the time she got back to the truck, Paul Jr. was missing.
Paul?
She ran into the woods, called his name,
Paul!
and ran toward the ravine, looked into the gully. She couldn't find him.
Paul!
She went to the dump office, called her husband, who then called the sheriff. Inside of 2 hours, deputies and wardens had responded to the dump and were starting a search. Paul Sr. felt like his son might have gone into the woods because he had a fascination with the forest.
This whole week, he's been asking about going to the mountain.
There was a concern because there was also a slight landslide in the dump, and they were worried that maybe the boy was buried. They did check that out and were able to confirm that there was no landslide, so he wasn't buried as a result of that in that dump. They did bring in canines. They tried to track him, and they found the scent down a road, onto another road, and then it just stopped. Then they couldn't track him after that. All of the homes along those roads were contacted, and nobody saw him.
I heard that the dogs pointed towards the mountain.
His trail ends at a crossroad, the middle of a crossroad, and stops. So
honestly, that tells me someone was driving along,
picked up.
Yeah. Crime of opportunity. Found a small kid unattended and just took him.
What time of year? What date?
This one happened
Columbus Day.
October 12th.
Yep. Okay. That time of year, 1950.
Did anybody else read that he was wearing a red jacket?
He was wearing a red top or something, yes. He was wearing a red shirt and brown pants.
Yeah, David Paulides doesn't mention that at all. I wish that he would have. Then the next one, Frida Langer, 50, in 1950. This is October 28th, 1950.
Like 2 weeks later.
This is, yep, just a couple weeks later. She's in Somerset, which is not very far. It's part of the triangle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
She's 53 years old.
Mountain, off that trail.
So she and her husband, I think they had like a summer cabin up there. It's a hunting cabin. Yeah. And they brought their cousin up to come check it out and hunt with them and just have a good time. So they're out, they're camping, and Max, her husband, has arthritis or something. His knee's acting up, and he's like, shit, I can't go out today. I'm just going to rest. You two go out and you have fun. It's her cousin. So she and her cousin go out, and she falls in a creek. This one is haunting because it reminds me of that kid in the Uinta Mountains, JT. Mm-hmm. You're going to remember this one.
Yes.
So she falls in a creek. She's soaking wet. She's like, to hell with this. I'm freezing, and I'm very uncomfortable. I'm going to go back to the camp. I'm going to get dressed. I'll meet you back at camp. And her cousin is like,
sweet, I'm going to go do some stuff. I'll see you back at camp.
She is, according to him,
150 feet
from the cabin. They can both see it when he splits up with her. An hour later, he comes back. She never arrived to the cabin. She's just gone. So they didn't find her that first night. They looked all over for her. There was a week-long search. They couldn't find her. Eventually, they suspended the search. A year later, like 7 months later. 7 months, yeah. Some different dudes were out fishing, and they found something that looked a little bit crazy, and it turned out that it was her. And this was an area that had been thoroughly searched when she was first disappeared. But they found this body, and it was her body.
Lightly searched.
This one says thoroughly searched.
Newspaper article.
That's what I read. Like that area was thoroughly searched.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people who keep claiming that it was thoroughly searched. I don't know if the article is wrong, if Politis is wrong. People keep wanting to say it was thoroughly searched, but I saw that because it was the reservoir, the dam reservoir had been lightly searched. It's believed her body washed up from the reservoir, and that had only been lightly searched previously. So I don't know. Whatever.
No.
We'll leave that.
But the question remains, how did she get there?
Mm-hmm.
How did she not make it 150 feet to the cabin?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It really brought me back to that 12-year-old, and it really hurt my heart a little bit just thinking of that poor kid. Like, how did this happen? And is there any significance to the fact that she was wet and covered in water? And I think that's all the people that Paulides has in his book. But then later he talks about Carl Ross.
He doesn't have Martha Jeanette Jones in there?
Nope.
What the heck? Okay, there was an obit for the boy, actually.
Which
I hope
boy?
I didn't close it.
The 8-year-old?
Paul Jepson?
I think it's Jepson, yeah.
Oh, I hope I didn't close it.
Well, Paul's disappearance and Paula's disappearance were very similar, where they just disappeared both wearing red.
There was some source that said Frida was wearing red too. So wait, are we not going to talk about the old man? He was the fifth.
What old man?
The old man who disappeared on the bus.
James Tedford?
Yeah.
He's not in the missing 411.
Yeah, but he's one of the 5, Mandy.
Talk about... No.
No, he's not.
Yes.
No.
He's one of the 5.
I found all of them.
The guy who got squished.
List.
The guy who got squished is not technically considered one of the 5 because it's 1945 to 1950 that everybody makes a big deal about. So the guy who got squished is a weird story, but he didn't technically disappear in unexplained circumstances and then his body was found. So that's the one thing that sets Frida apart from these other 5 is that her body was actually found, but her disappearance is still mysterious.
You're totally right. James E. Tedford, yes. December 1st, 1949.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But he's one of the 5.
He's not in here.
Dude, Mandy, this is going to blow your mind. Did you hear his story?
Nope. Tell me about it.
All right. So I don't have the dates. Okay. I've just heard the story so many times now.
December 1st, 1949.
Oh, thank you, sir. All right. So this man lived in a soldier's home. He was a World War I veteran, and he was married to Pearl Tedford. He lived in a soldier's veterans home, kind of an institution, like a home for these soldiers. And he left to go visit his wife in a nearby, is it St. Albans? A nearby town.
Yep, St. Albans.
Via bus, Pearl Tedford and family for about a week. They all saw him get on the bus to Bennington and made sure he got on it. He gets on the bus. Witnesses can place him as being on the bus.
Okay.
The story that's told at large is that everybody remembers seeing him at that second to last stop, and somehow by the time they get to Bennington, he's all of a sudden not there, but all of his stuff is still on the bus. Now, I saw 3 articles which show that the bus driver says he got off the bus at Brandon, and that's the stop before Bennington. Okay. Second to last stop. Bennington is the end of the road. Bus driver makes sure the bus is empty and puts the bus away into the bus yard or whatever, right? So Brandon is the second to last stop. The version of the events differs based on who's telling the story. Some people say he saw an old friend at Brandon, got off the bus, but then got back on the bus. And people confirm that he was on the bus again, but suddenly had disappeared when they get to Bennington. His money, his wallet, his suitcase, all of his stuff is still on the bus, but he has just vanished.
Weird.
Into thin air on this bus, allegedly. But I did see 3 articles in which the bus driver gives statement saying that the guy got off at Brandon. Now, the unfortunate thing about this case and the investigation is that it was delayed by a week because the home thought maybe he had just stayed a little longer with his family, and his family thought he made it home and I guess didn't really check on him.
And remember, kids, this is before cell phones, and not every home had a phone.
Right. So a week goes by before anybody starts wondering where he is. And that's when they start looking for him. Now, there were statements made by people at the home who said that he claimed he wasn't coming back. The family states that he was despondent and stated that he did not want to go back to that home. And then there were police reports, police investigating a man behaving strangely in Brandon that previous week, who may or may not have been him, but they couldn't verify. And I have no idea how that ends. And ultimately, his case is unresolved.
Okay.
They don't find him in Brandon or anywhere. He just becomes a missing person. And the story is that he vanished off of this bus, which is a weird one.
That's crazy.
I think a lot of people want to believe that he vanished off of that bus. I'm inclined to believe that his story is very different from all the rest and that he just got off that bus on Brandon and never went back and maybe he had dementia. I don't know what his issue was.
Maybe he walked out into the woods and just didn't come back out.
There's internet sleuths who think that his is a story that was just blown out of proportion and has been embellished a lot, and that, yeah, he was probably just a man with dementia, who wasn't well and wasn't thinking right, left his stuff on the bus, got off, and was like, I'm not going. And yeah, you're right. Maybe he succumbed.
It sounds like a silver alert situation. Do other states have silver alerts, or is that just an Arizona
we do.
thing?
Yeah, no, we do too.
Okay. I mean, honestly, he just, that's sad, man. How old was he again? Did you say 70 something?
68.
68. He's 68.
Yeah, he wasn't even as old as Mitty. Then I saw there's a little article where when you look at the obituary of Paul, because at some point they eventually declared him dead. Paul Kristen Buddy Jepson, 1942 to 1950. There's an article titled 6 Persons Disappear in Southern Vermont in the Last 5 Years. The disappearance of 16-year-old brown-eyed Martha Jeanette Jones of Bondville, who vanished a month ago as she hitchhiked to school in Manchester, raises the toll of missing persons in the southwestern area of Vermont within the last 5 years to 6. Her disappearance was not discovered for a month because her family thought she was at school. It was another one of those situations where she left to school. They thought she was there. The school thought she was home, and nobody figured it out for a whole month. I found some more specific details about her, and she went to the Burr and Burton Seminary School in Manchester. I'm rambling now. But anyway, I don't know why nobody really talks about that one. There's no follow-up story on that one, and I can't find...
She was hitchhiking,
She was
right?
hitchhiking.
She was...
But so did Paula Weston.
But she disappeared on the mountain.
Right. That tells you about the time, right?
Yeah.
Tells
I'm not
you-
saying she did... I'm just saying that might have been the logical conclusion. She was hitchhiking, and one of the hitchhikers got her. Did we hear ever that anybody saw her in one of the towns or cities?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
When I look her up, I can't really find anything. You're
No,
right.
I looked
Maybe
her up
she
too. I
ends
couldn't
up.
find anything.
Maybe she
either.
ends up being found. I don't know.
I don't know. That's sad. Poor lady. She was young. You said she was 18?
She was 16.
Oh, she's just a baby.
But some people include her as the 6th mysterious person. And so if we count the other guy who got squeezed, then that's really 7 mysterious disappearances or deaths.
Plus Carl Ross. Did we count Carl Ross in that number?
Yeah, that's what
We
I'm
didn't
saying.
tell his story.
Is he the one who's been squished?
No.
Wait, who's Carl Ross?
is the deer hunter.
Oh.
I didn't even tell him because he's not in the missing 401. I think he should be. So Carl Ross, I forgot to talk about this. He disappeared in 1958. No, 57, excuse me.
Okay. This doesn't fit into our 45 to 50 timeline.
But it was in the area. So he was in Ripton Mountain, which actually I'm not super sure exactly where that is in the geography of, is it in the Bennington Triangle? Is it not? He was with a hunting party, and he and his wife were pretty experienced hunters, and they were driving the deer. I guess that's a tactic where you have some people come in around the herd from the back and push them forward. So it's easier for the hunters to shoot them. But he's another very experienced hunter. He's pretty young. He was 27 years old, and he had been doing this his whole life, I guess. And he knew this area really, really well. Well, his wife shows up, but he doesn't. And so they go and they look for him. And the thing about him is, and this is an anecdote from the time, the location where he was last seen, the area where he went missing from, all he had to do was walk 30 minutes in any direction, and he would have found himself on a road, like if he had gotten lost. So they're basically saying this is an impossible situation for him to have gotten lost in. You can't find him. Helicopters are dispatched, and they look for him, and there's a big search for him. No trace was found of him. There was some speculation that maybe he'd been killed in a hunting accident, and maybe his body was hid, but there was never any evidence of that. His wife, Margaret, thinks that maybe he broke a leg in a fall or something and ended up holed up in the ravine and was just never found. But they searched and searched and they couldn't find him. And it's so sad because even a year later, she's talking to different news outlets saying, I haven't given up the search. I'm still looking for him. And so that's another really weird one, just because he's another experienced person, an adult with a working body. He didn't have any issues or any known chronic diseases or illnesses. And the area where he went missing from, it should have been literally impossible for him to go missing. But he did anyway. And there were no traces found.
I have a theory.
What's your theory?
So one of the theories that I found for this triangle specifically is it is considered a window area.
What's a window area?
Or an area where there's lots of interdimensional portals. And we talk about Bigfoot being interdimensional as well. Mm-hmm. So my theory is that these people disappeared because Bigfoot appeared, picked them up, and took them through a portal. Therefore, they disappeared. No trace.
I don't hate it.
What do you guys think?
I don't hate it.
Well, okay. So I almost expected you to tell us some of the Native American lore leading into it.
I haven't got there yet because I was going to let Mandy do that.
We're running out of time. Let's hold that thought, JT, because I think that that's a good one. I think we will come back and we'll do a second part of the Bennington Triangle, and we'll talk about the Bigfoot connection, the portal theory, and let's talk about some of the old stories from the indigenous peoples and some of the things that are still happening there to this day. And lastly, the water monster that lives there. So with that, I think we'll wrap this episode up. Any last thoughts about the missing persons?
What did we see about the time that everyone went missing? Was it roughly about the same? 3 to 5?
3 or 4 o'clock to 5, yeah.
And this link that I just posted, they pointed that out, and I didn't quite make that connection myself.
Fall to winter. Most of them were wearing red. Here's what I think. I think everybody keeps discounting a serial killer because of the whole profile aspect. None of these people had anything in common in terms of serial killers having a type for their profile. But it seems to me that the profile is the time of year, the time of day, that they're alone and they're a vulnerable type. 8-year-old boy, teeny tiny 18-year-old girl, 75-year-old man.
Even the old man was about the same weight as the others. He was a smaller man.
Right. He may have been experienced in the area, but we don't know that he was a burly, strong man who could have defended himself. Frida Langer, 18 months prior, had brain surgery, which caused her to have epilepsy. She wasn't necessarily well either. I think they were all vulnerable individuals who were alone. Now, I don't know. I'm just a little surprised at how many people are talking about it, and nobody wants to acknowledge that in itself seems like a profile. Maybe if this is a serial killer, it's about opportunity for them. Maybe for some reason, this time of day and this schedule is when he can or is willing to do this. And then it comes down to opportunity in terms of finding a vulnerable person alone. And then as the crimes go on, there's an escalation, at least in terms of this window of 45 to 50. He goes from they're kind of farther apart. And then all of a sudden in 1950, there's 3 of them in a super short amount of time. And then it stops. Maybe he's like, oh, this is getting too hot and I better get the hell out of here.
I guess my only thing about that is, don't we know about serial killers that they tend to have a preferred method of killing people. The bodies that we do recover either have no injuries at all or potentially drowned in the water, except for the one guy who was crushed to death. So I just...
Well, of the 5 who disappeared between 1945 and 1950, the old man doesn't count. I think he got off that bus and walked away and never came up again.
Fair. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
The 4 then, we didn't find any of their bodies except for Frida, and hers was pretty seriously in a bad state of decomposition. And I don't know, I read or heard that she maybe didn't have a head, or like she was missing body parts.
Well,
and
they found the metal plate that was in her head.
Okay. She was not in good condition, and they really couldn't determine the cause of death or tell what had happened to her. And so they just speculate maybe she somehow fell and, again, on her way, like had a seizure or something on her way back to the campsite and became disoriented and kind of wandered in the wrong direction. And there were some semi-reasonable explanations in her case, but I don't know. I'm just saying, I think that is a stronger possibility than most people are willing to give it.
I'm going to say this one thing, really, like the term serial killer wasn't really a term until about the 1970s.
Exactly. So none of these people knew better than to hitchhike and do stupid stuff.
So I guess this maybe supports your theory, because at that time, they didn't really know what a serial killer was. The patterns that they've developed over the years with serial killers is newer information.
Yeah, it wasn't until the 1970s that they figured out profiling and started really studying
But then
cases.
If you think about the very first serial killer being the guy in London, what's his name?
Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper, he was targeting prostitutes.
Yeah.
Specifically.
I mean, he was leaving bodies behind, but he also had they were able to figure out this is the same guy because he had a signature style of what he was doing. And most of these guys do. They have a signature style of how they're killing people.
In these, there's no real physical evidence of a serial killer.
Well, yeah, there's no physical evidence of anything.
Yeah, there's no evidence of another person involved, period. And also, I just want to say, this is supposed to be a paranormal podcast.
I know, but you can't rule out the true crime aspect of it.
We did have a number of serial killers in America that were pretty early on.
There was
possible. Was Albert Fish. There was, who's this guy? Holmes.
Oh, Robert Holmes.
Yeah,
he's creepy. Oh, he's creepy. I love reading about his stuff because he is
he was
nutbag.
Yep.
He made it a whole hobby. He had a whole setup for himself to make it.
He had fun with it.
Ugh, gross. Disgusting. Ugh.
9 to 200.
Yeah. He was prolific.
So my point, though, is that they would have thought about it because there were serial killers before then. Confirmed serial killers.
Yeah. I just had to get that out there. But otherwise, I have a feeling that more speculation will evolve as we continue talking about these other phenomenon that are known to have been witnessed in the area. And then
for a long time.
But for now,
Vermont is a crazy place.
Without going into those other details, for now, serial killer is not a horrible explanation. Now, since you haven't talked about the Native American culture at all, I will just say this. The Native Americans warned early settlers, don't go there. The Native Americans did not spend time. They avoided this area other than to bury their dead, allegedly. And they had lore about bad things, people disappearing. And so whether or not you really believe in the lore, I think you need to believe that people were disappearing is what they were witnessing, whatever the reason being. And so even they were like, no, don't do it. Don't hang out over there. And of course, everybody was like, well, we're gonna, because we're white people and that's what we do.
Free real estate.
Exactly, real estate. Trees, let's cut them down. That's what they said. I think we need to discuss that because I have questions about that, because which indigenous people and what area and what specifically were their stories, because I found none of that.
Supposedly none of them. Like, they all avoided that area. The same thing was true of West Virginia.
Wait, you found none of that?
I did not. I found stories of specific creatures
Yeah.
and lore on what to do and how to avoid them, but not any hint that that area of Bennington was a burial ground. Not any hint that that area...
There was a Four Winds legend. There was
the Four Winds legend. The
stone that eats men.
That eats people.
That's another one I looked into. I could not verify that that's a real legend. People talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
But there is nothing from an actual indigenous site or reference that I was able to actually say, oh, okay, here it is. Here is the creature that they're talking about.
So you didn't find that they avoided those areas?
Not that I could find.
I mean, here's what I will say. I didn't bother researching it at all. I'm only repeating what I heard and or read. What I do know is that there are Native American earthworks up in northern Vermont, and there were a lot of cairn stone formations all over that mountain and along the long trail. And so clearly they weren't avoiding it. They were building structures and doing things there. So
there was war up there. They spent time up there fighting against the colonists. It was one of like the last strongholds.
Oh, all right. Well, that's all good sneak peeks into the next one. So join us next time.
Yeah. We'll come back because we're getting into it, but let's talk about this some more on the next episode. This has been another episode of
The Wandering
Wandering
Crow.
Crow.